네, 여러분 반갑습니다. 지금부터 저희 2023년도 제16회 국제기구 진출 설명회를 시작하겠습니다. 저는 오늘 행사 사회를 맡은 서울시 아나운서 유채린입니다. 반갑습니다. 네, 오늘 설명회 와주신 모든 분들 진심으로 감사드리고요. 저희 오늘 세션 이제 행사 소개 먼저 하도록 하겠습니다. 오늘 전체 세션에선 개회사와 그리고 환영사가 있은 이후에 국제기구 인사 담당자분들의 자기소개가 이어질 예정입니다. 그리고 나서 외교부 국제기구 진출 프로그램에 대한 소개를 듣고 나서 서울 소재 국제기구 현황에 대한 발표를 마지막으로 오늘 이 다목적 홀에서 행사가 끝이 나고요. 이후 일정까지 좀 소개를 하도록 하겠습니다. 전체 세션을 종료하고 난 이후에는 기구별 심층 세션이 이어질 예정입니다. 이곳 다목적 홀에서 다시 한번 이어질 예정이고 그리고 지하 2층 태평홀과 그리고 3층 소회의실에서 각각 진행될 예정입니다. 제가 추후에 다시 한번 안내 말씀드릴 거고요. 이어서 마지막으로는 국제기구 모의 면접까지 진행될 예정입니다. 다목적 홀 이곳에서 다시 한번 진행될 예정이니까 참고 부탁드리겠습니다. 또한 지금 현재 같은 층에 있는 간담회장 1이 있습니다. 간담회장 1에서는 서울시 소재 국제기구 홍보전이 운영되고 있으니까요. 많은 관심 부탁드리겠고요. 이 외에도 기구별 심층 세션 이후에 간담회장 1에서 다시 한번 해당 국제기구들이 참여하는 모의 면접 또한 진행될 예정입니다. 좀 복잡하죠? 끝나고 나서 제가 한 번 더 소개해 드릴 거니까요. 걱정하지 않으셔도 괜찮습니다. 자, 그럼 지금부터 시작해 보도록 하겠습니다. 먼저 외교부의 강주영 국제기구 국장의 개회사 먼저 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 무대 위로 모시겠습니다. 큰 박수 부탁드립니다.
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 외교부의 강주현 국제기구 국장이라고 합니다. 하여튼 오늘 바쁘신 와중에 이 국제기구 진출 설명회에 참석해 주신 여러분들께 진심으로 일단 감사하고 그다음 환영의 말씀을 드립니다. 우선 국제기구 진출에 대한 조언을 주시기 위해 설명에 참석해 주신 국제기구 담당자분들과 이 자리를 함께 해주신 김희승 부시장님 그리고 다른 서울특별시 관계자분들께도 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 오늘부터 3일간 서울, 인천, 전북에서 개최 예정인 설명회에는 저희 뉴욕에 있는 유엔사무국, 그다음에 UNDP, UNESCO, UNICEF, OCHA, WHO, WFP, IAEA, ICC, OECD 등 총 10개 국제기구가 참여를 해주셨는데요. 이번 설명회가 국제기구 진출에 대한 여러분들의 이해를 제고하는 데 기여를 할 수 있기를 바랍니다. 일단 우리나라가 유엔에 가입한 게 1991년인데요. 비교적 짧은 시간에도 불구하고 우리 국민들이 그동안 아주 적극적으로 이제 노력을 해서 많은 분야에서 지금 활동을 하고 있습니다. 1991년 당시에는 국제기구에서 근무하는 우리 국민이 한 100여 명이었는데 현재는 한 1100여 명이 근무를 하고 있고요. 이것은 어떻게 보면 대한민국의 높아진 위상을 보여주고 있는 것으로 생각됩니다. 여러분들께서도 잘 알고 계시는 반기문 제8대 유엔 사무총장, 이종욱 제6대 WHO 사무총장 같은 국제기구 수장들도 배출을 하였습니다. 이분들께서는 글로벌 리더로서 국제사회의 지속가능한 평화와 개발을 위해 많은 기여를 하셨고 반기문 총장님 같은 경우는 아직도 많은 기여를 하고 계십니다. 우리 정부는 한국의 국력과 이제 국제사회의 기대와 요구에 부응하기 위해서 우리 국민의 국제기구 진출이 보다 계속적으로 확대되어야 한다는 생각을 갖고 있고요. 그러한 차원에서 저희가 다양한 지원을 지금 제공을 하고 있습니다. 우선 외교부가 1996년부터 여러분들께서도 잘 알고 계시는 이 JPO 제도를 지금 운영을 하고 있는데 이게 어떻게 보면 저희가 봤을 때는 국제기구에 진출할 수 있는 가장 좀 확실한 방법으로 저희가 생각을 하고 있어서 이 제도에 대한 지원을 계속적으로 확대해 나가고 있습니다. 그래서 91년에 이 제도가 생겼을 때는 저희가 한 5명을, 그 96년도에 이 제도가 생겼을 때는 저희가 5명을 보내다가 이제 계속적으로 이제 늘려서 올해는 이제 25명을 선발할 예정이고 내년에는 이제 30명까지 보낼 수 있도록 저희가 노력을 하고 있습니다. 이 JPO 제도 이외에도 그 UN 봉사단, 즉 UN Volunteers라는 제도가 있고, 하여튼 이외에도 다른 인턴십을 통해서 여러분들께서 이제 현장 근무 경험을 쌓을 수 있는 프로그램들을 계속 저희가 지원을 하고 있습니다. 또 국제기구 진출을 위해서 저희가 이제 필요하신 정보와 맞춤형 상담을 제공하는 국제기구 인사센터도 외교부에서 운영 중에 있는데, 하여튼 궁금한 점이 있으면 이 국제기구 센터를 통해서 언제든지 연락을 주시면 저희가 적극적으로 지원을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 이번 국제기구 진출 설명회 역시 여러분들의 국제기구 진출을 지원하기 위한 노력의 일환이고요. 오늘 행사가 여러분들의 미래를 설계하는 데 있어서 많은 도움이 되기를 바랍니다. 다시 한번 이번 행사를 도와주신 모든 분들께 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 감사합니다.
네, 큰 박수 한번 부탁드립니다. 네, 개회사의 시작으로 이제 저희가 이어서 환영사 한번 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 서울시에서 대표해서 함께 와주셨는데요. 서울시 김희승 행정일부 시장님의 환영사 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 큰 박수로 맞이해 주시기 바랍니다.
예, 여러분 반갑습니다. 서울시 행정일부시장 김의승입니다. 지금 바깥의 온도가 30도가 넘는 무더위가 보이고 있는데 지금 이곳에 실내에서인데도 불구하고 엄청난 열기를 보여주는 것 같습니다. 먼저 2023년도 제16회 국제기구 진출 설명회에 함께해 주신 모든 분들을 서울시를 대표해서 진심으로 환영합니다. 서울시청에서 아마 이 행사를 한 것은 4년 만인 것 같습니다. 국제기구에 대한 많은 분들의 관심과 열정으로 오늘 시청을 꽉 채워주셔서 진심으로 기쁘고 또 감사하다는 말씀을 드립니다. 그리고 행사를 공동 주최해 주시는 우리 외교부에 방금 인사 말씀해 주신 강주현 국장님을 비롯해서 여러 관계자분들이 이 행사를 위해서 정말 애를 많이 써주셨습니다. 그리고 또 매년 행사 운영 지원을 해주고 계신 우리 유엔협회 세계연맹의 서울사무국 관계자 여러분과 또 서포터즈 여러분께도 깊은 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 특히 무엇보다도 이번에 외교부가 초청해서 아까 국장님께서도 이야기하셨습니다만 이름만 되면 여러분들이 다 알만한 국제기구의 관계자분들이 이곳에 직접 와 계십니다. 외교부 초청으로 10개 기구에서 함께하고 계시고요. 또 이제 서울에 소재하고 있는 국제기구들도 꽤 많습니다. 지금 서울시가 카운트하기로는 지금 38개 국제기구가 나와 있는데 그 중에서 오늘 7개 기구에서 여러분께 어떤 충분한 정보를 드리기 위해서 함께하고 있습니다. 해외에서 오신 분들 또 서울에서 함께 해주신 국제기구 관계자 여러분들께도 여러분 진심으로 따뜻한 박수로 환영을 해주시면 감사하겠습니다. 서울시가 외교부와 함께 이 행사를 한 지는 이제 지난 2015년부터니까 금년이 9번째가 됩니다. 그동안에 국제기구에 대한 이해도를 높이고 또 내가 과연 국제기구에서 일을 할 수 있는지 사전에 한번 점검하고 또 궁금증을 해소하는 의미 있는 시간이 되시길 바랍니다. 그리고 여러분 아시는 것처럼 서울시에서는 물론 이제 국내 취업을 위해서는 청년 취업 사관학교라고 해서 문과를 나왔더라도 문과 전공을 했더라도 디지털 전환을 할 수 있는 프로그램도 지원을 하고 있고 또 취업 이외에 창업에 대한 청년들의 지원도 하고 있습니다만 오늘과 같이 이렇게 국제기구에 진출하기 위한 설명회라든지 혹은 서울시가 진행하는 청년 인턴 직무 캠프와 같이 해외 취업까지도 저희들이 적극적으로 지원을 할 계획입니다. 서울시는 청년 여러분들의 취업과 앞으로의 진로에 대해서 진심을 가지고 일하고 있다는 말씀 한 번 더 드리면서 모쪼록 오늘 이 행사가 국제기구에 대한 이해도도 충분히 높이고 또 국제기구와의 긴밀한 협력을 통해서 앞으로 청년들에게 더 많은 성장의 기회를 제공하고 또 글로벌 인재로서 더욱 앞서 나갈 수 있는 그런 훌륭한 계기가 되기를 바라면서 청년 여러분들에 대한 지지와 응원의 말씀을 드리면서 환영의 말씀에 가름하겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
네, 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. 네, 멋진 환영사의 수진 부시장님께 진심으로 감사드립니다. 자, 방금 부시장님께서도 직접 언급을 해주셨는데요. 오늘 정말 많은 기구에서 함께 해주고 계십니다. 그래서 이번엔 오늘 설명회를 위해서 먼 곳에서 와주신 국제기구 인사 담당자분들을 모셔보겠습니다. 함께 간략한 인사 말씀과 그리고 기구별 소개를 들어보도록 할 텐데요. 자, 그럼 12개 기구 그리고 총 13명의 인사분들을 무대 위로 모시겠습니다. 함께 박수로 맞이해주세요. 네, 먼저 유엔사무국에서 인사 말씀이랑 또 이제 소개 한번 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kwon Hong-seok. I work as the Chief of Strategic Talent Management Service in the Office of Human Resources in the UN Secretariat. I'd like to first thank the Seoul Metropolitan Government and Ministry of Foreign Affairs for co-hosting this event and inviting us to the event. Such a pleasure meeting with all of you who are so passionate and interested in working in UN organizations. I have about 28 years of experience in various areas of human resources management and economic and social development. So I look forward to engaging and sharing with you about working in the UN Secretariat. And thank you very much.
네, thank you. Next, IAEA? WHO. 그냥, 네.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Young-A Lee. 안녕하세요. 저는 이영애입니다. I'm representing the World Health Organization. I'm an HR officer there, specifically in the Western Pacific Regional Office. So it's just very much an honor to be standing here before you today, and I really look forward to the opportunity to getting to know some of you better through our one-on-one sessions. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon everyone. My name is Gesine Doop. I am the representative from the World Food Programme, WFP. We have a booth here today as well, so I hope you come to visit and learn more about our organization. I've been with the World Food Programme for over 8 years. I'm currently an HR manager in the HR Talent Acquisition and Deployment branch. I'm very happy to share more with some of you. I have some mock interviews later, so I'm very excited to get to know more of you. And great to see you've shown up with so many people after the exams in a busy period. Thank you.
Good afternoon to all. My name is Jean-Luc Marcelin from the United Nations Development Programme. It's the third time I'm going to attend this international career fair, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be back here. As Ms. Kang mentioned, the JPO program, Junior Professional Officer, is one of the many ways to join the UN, and that's how I started. I was funded by the French government in Cambodia, close by. I've been in the UN for over 20 years, and I work in talent acquisition and partnership activities. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to our interaction. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christine Sim, originally from Singapore. I head the recruitment unit at the International Atomic Energy Agency. We're quite in the news right now, lately, for various reasons, but it's a pleasure to be here. So I've been with the IAEA specifically for the past 5 years, and prior to that, I have over 20 years of human resources experience. During today's session, I really hope to be able to engage with you and for you to also engage with us here. Feel free to use this opportunity to get to know us as well as the organizations we work in. This is a really once in a lifetime opportunity for you to have so many HR folks to really share our knowledge and share our experience with you. So feel free to ask us as many questions as you can. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, I'm Rossella Salvia, I'm Italian. I'm here as the head of the Training and Career and Partnerships Development of UNESCO. It's the second time I'm here in Seoul for such a career fair, and it's a prestigious event. So you are very lucky, let's say, to be here, and we are very happy to meet you. I've been working with Korea for so many years. I was telling Director General how we are really proud of the Korean JPOs and the Korean staff, because we also work with KOICA and with ECO, so that there are several Korean entities that are working with us at UNESCO on environmental programs and education and many others. So these are fantastic opportunities for you to learn more about what we're doing, and we really hope to see you later for the other activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosella. My name is Aina Karliva. I'm originate from Turkmenistan, and I work as a senior HR officer in the staffing and recruitment team of UNESCO. So we doubled our efforts this time, coming together with Rosella, and this is my honor and pleasure to be there. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Aisha Abdulaziz, and I am the head of talent acquisition, outreach, and management of OCHA, UN OCHA, the Office of Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here around all this talent in this big room. Please come to us, ask us questions. We are here to help. We are here to hold your hand, so don't hesitate, and looking forward to engage with you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daiga Barone. I'm representing Latvia. Currently, I'm talent acquisition team lead in International Criminal Court. We are also lately quite a lot in the news due to different reasons. I'm looking forward to engage with you and discuss opportunities how you could join us, because we are ready to welcome more of you. Thank you for today.
Good afternoon. My name is Carmen Munoz. I come from the Dominican Republic. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm particularly excited because I'm very close to the job applicants, the seekers, the young talent. So representing today, United Nations Children's Fund, also known as UNICEF. I look very forward to meeting and engaging with all of you today. And we also have a booth. If you're interested, please visit. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, it's such a pleasure to be here in front of you all. I've wanted to come to Korea for a long time, but to do it in this environment and to get to discuss with all you is an absolute pleasure. My name is Lyle Cameron. I'm an analyst in the Talent Management and Analytics team of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, better known as the OECD. We work for better policies, for better lives. I'd encourage you to stay for our presentation where we can discuss further. Just a little maybe anecdote. I was informed that actually my predecessor in my current position actually a few years ago was sitting where you are right now. She has since left and is pursuing a wonderful career in international organizations. So maybe in a few years you could be joining me and my esteemed colleagues up here. So thank you once again. It's a pleasure and a privilege, and I wish you a great day.
네, 다시 한번 방금 소개해 주시고 또 이제 내용 함께 해 주셨던 분들과 또 경청해 주신 모든 분들 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. 네, 이어서 외교부와 서울시 관계자분들 함께 나오셔서 단체 사진 찍도록 하겠습니다. 무대 위로 모시겠습니다. 네, 여러분들께서 큰 박수 한번 부탁드립니다. 네, 그럼 이어서 진행해 보도록 하겠습니다. 이번에는 외교부에서 진행하고 있는 다양한 국제기구 진출 프로그램에 대한 소개가 있는데요. 소개에는 외교부 유엔과 그리고 임채영 외무사무관님을 모셔보겠습니다. 큰 박수로 환영 부탁드립니다.
안녕하십니까. 저는 외교부 유엔과의 임채영 사무관이라고 합니다. 오늘 국제기구 진출 설명회에 참석해주신 분들께 다시 한번 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 저는 우리 국민의 국제기구 진출 현황을 간략히 살펴보고 대표적인 국제기구인 유엔의 채용 방식, 그리고 우리 정부의 국제기구 진출 사업에 대해 알아보는 순서로 설명을 진행하도록 하겠습니다. 지금 보고 계신 그래프는 지난 30년간 우리 국민의 국제기구 진출 추이를 나타내고 있습니다. 1991년 당시에는 국제기구에 근무하는 우리 국민이 불과 100여 명 수준이었습니다. 이후 우리 정부의 국제사회에 대한 기여 확대와 맞물려 우리 국민의 국제기구 진출이 꾸준히 확대되어 왔고, 현재에는 1120명의 우리 국민이 유엔을 포함한 각종 국제기구에 근무하고 계십니다. 우리 국민의 전반적인 국제기구 진출 확대와 더불어 다수의 국제기구 수장이 배출된 바 있습니다. 여러분이 잘 알고 계실 반기문 제8대 유엔 사무총장님 외에도 고 이종욱 제6대 WHO 사무총장, 김학수 유엔 에스캅 사무총장, 송상현 ICC 재판소장 등을 배출하였고, 임기택 IMO 사무총장께서는 2016년부터 현재까지 활동하고 계십니다. 뿐만 아니라 우리나라는 유엔 총회, 유엔 경제사회 이사회, 유엔 인권이사회 등 주요 유엔 기관의 의장을 배출한 바 있습니다. 앞서 말씀드린 대로 작년을 기준으로 P급 이상에서 1120명의 우리 국민이 국제기구에 근무하고 계십니다. 그중 유엔사무국에 158명의 우리 국민이 근무하고 계시고, UNDP나 UNICEF, WHO 등 여러 국제기구에서도 활약하고 계십니다. 그렇다면 어떻게 국제기구 채용이 가능할지 다음으로 대표적인 국제기구인 유엔의 채용 방식과 우리 정부의 국제기구 진출 사업을 소개해드리겠습니다. 유엔을 포함한 국제기구에 채용되기 위해서는 다양한 요건을 충족해야 하는데, 특히 전문성, 경력, 어학 능력이 매우 중요시되고 있습니다. 이어서 유엔의 채용 방식입니다. 유엔이 직원을 채용하는 방식에는 크게 공서근무, YPP라고 하는 특별 경쟁 채용, 그리고 인턴십 총 3가지가 있습니다. 공서근무는 국제기구 진출 시 가장 일반적인 채용 방식인데요. 국제기구는 보통 직원의 퇴직, 전출, 직위 신설 등으로 인해 공석이 발생할 경우 국제공모를 통해 인력을 채용합니다. 기본적인 공석 응모 절차는 여러분이 보시는 바와 같습니다. 먼저 각 국제기구 홈페이지의 채용 게시판에 공고되어 있는 공석 정보에 맞게 지원 서류를 준비하시고 기한에 맞게 온라인으로 제출해 주셔야 합니다. 다음으로는 국제기구 측의 서류 심사와 필기시험이 진행되고, 필기시험까지 통과하시면 역량 중심 인터뷰가 실시됩니다. 면접 이후 선발되면 국제기구 직원 명부에 등재되고 이후 정식 근무를 시작하시게 됩니다. 공석 응모는 수시 채용으로 이루어지기 때문에 관심 있는 국제기구의 홈페이지의 채용 게시판과 주요 국제기구 공석 정보를 게재하고 있는 저희 국제기구 인사센터 홈페이지를 주기적으로 방문하실 것을 추천드립니다. 다음으로 유엔 사무국 주관 YPP 특별 경쟁 채용에 대해 안내드리도록 하겠습니다. 특히 오늘 설명회에 참석해주신 권홍석 유엔 사무국 전략인재관리서비스국장님, 그리고 아이나 칼리에바 유네스코 선임 담당관님께서 각각 유엔 사무국 그리고 유네스코 YPP 제도를 통해 유엔에 진출하셨습니다. 유엔 사무국은 전문 직군 이상 정규직위 중에 3,600개 직위에 대해서는 채용 시 출신 국적을 고려하는 적정 진출 제도를 운영하고 있습니다. 말씀드린 이 3,600개 직위에 대해서는 회원국들의 분담률, 인구 요소 등을 종합적으로 고려하여 미진출, 과소진출국으로 분류된 국가의 국민들을 대상으로 YPP를 실시합니다. YPP 응시 자격으로는 만 32세 이하, 지원 분야 관련 학사 이상의 학위와 유창한 영어 또는 불어 구사 능력이 요구되고 있습니다. 우리나라의 경우 1991년 유엔 가입 이후 총 20번 YPP 실시 대상국으로 선정되었고 총 80분의 우리 국민이 YPP를 통해 유엔에 채용되셨습니다. 우리나라는 2023년 YPP 실시 대상국으로 선발되었고 올해에는 경제, 정보 시스템 및 기술 분야에서 선발이 진행 중인 점 참고 부탁드립니다. 채용시험은 1차 서류심사, 2차 일반 및 전공시험, 3차 면접 순으로 이루어집니다. 시험에 합격하실 경우 개별 부서별로 채용 의사 전달과 합격자 수락이 이루어지고 이후에는 P1 또는 P2 직급으로 채용됩니다. 보다 자세한 사항은 UN 커리어스 홈페이지에서 확인해 보시면 좋을 것 같습니다. 이어서 국제기구 초급 전문가 JPO 제도에 대해 설명드리도록 하겠습니다. JPO 제도는 각국이 파견 비용을 부담하여 자국민들의 국제기구 진출을 지원하는 제도입니다. 우리나라는 1996년부터 JPO 제도를 실시하여 선발 인원을 꾸준히 확대해왔고 파견 종료자의 80% 이상이 국제기구 진출에 성공하여 가장 효과적인 진출 플랫폼으로 평가되고 있습니다. 금년에는 유엔사무국을 포함한 총 국제기구의 총 25분을 선발할 예정으로 있습니다. 이어 기본적인 JPO 지원 요건에 대해 말씀드리겠습니다. 대한민국 국민이며 국내외 대학 학사 학위를 소지하셔야 되는데 직위에 따라서 석사 학위 이상이 요구되는 경우도 있습니다. 기본적으로 만 32세까지 지원이 가능한데요. 군필자의 경우에는 복무 기간에 따라 상한 연령이 연장됩니다. 남성의 경우 병역필, 면제자 또는 시험 시행 연도 말일까지 전역 예정자까지 지원하실 수 있으며 영어 능력 검정 시험 성적도 요구됩니다. 최대 2개 직위까지 복수 지원이 가능하신 점 참고해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 다음으로 선발 절차입니다. 금년에는 7월경 외교부와 국제기구에서 JPO 선발 공고를 동시에 게재할 예정입니다. 8월에서 9월경 국제기구의 1차 서류심사가 이루어지고 통과하신 분들을 대상으로 9월에서 10월경 외교부가 한국어 능력 평가를 실시합니다. 이어 10월에서 11월경 국제기구의 2차 면접 또는 필기시험이 실시됩니다. 최종 합격하신 분들은 저희 국제기구 인사센터에서 개별적으로 안내를 드리고 있고 매년 초 외교부 주최로 합격자 대상 오리엔테이션이 이루어진 후 국제기구 측 일정에 따라 파견이 이루어지고 있습니다. 구체적인 선발 일정과 필요 서류는 향후 국제기구 인사센터 홈페이지를 통해 확인해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. UN 자원봉사단 UNV 파견 역시 JPO와 함께 운영되고 있는 주요 진출 사업입니다. 외교부는 우리 인재들에게 국제기구 현장 근무 경험을 제공할 수 있도록 1986년부터 UNV 봉사단원 파견을 시작했으며 JPO와 마찬가지로 파견 인원을 꾸준히 확대해 왔습니다. 금년에는 청년 봉사당 30명, 전문 봉사단 25명, 총 55명을 선발할 예정입니다. 봉사단 지원의 공통 요건으로 영어, 프랑스어 또는 스페인어 중 1개 이상의 언어를 구사 가능하셔야 합니다. 청년 봉사단원의 경우는 만 22세에서 29세 사이 학사 학위와 2년 이상의 관련 경험이 필요하며 선발 시 최대 1년 6개월간 파견이 가능합니다. 전문 봉사단원의 경우 만 25세 이상 학사 및 석사 학위와 3년 이상의 관련 경험이 필요하고 선발 시 최대 2년간 파견이 가능합니다. 이외에도 우리 정부 각 부처에서는 우리 청년을 대상으로 다양한 인턴십 프로그램을 운영하고 있습니다. 대표적으로 외교부에서는 국제재생에너지기구 인턴 파견 과정, 중남미 지역기구 인턴 파견 과정 등을 운영하고 있으며 그 외에도 환경부의 국제환경 전문가 양성 과정 등도 운영 중에 있습니다. 끝으로 외교부 국제기구 인사센터에서는 우리 국민의 진출을 지원하는 다양한 정보를 게재하고 있습니다. 오늘 설명회에서 소개해드린 내용도 국제기구 인사센터 홈페이지에 자세히 나와 있으니 확인을 부탁드립니다. 그럼 이상으로 발표를 마치겠습니다. 지금까지 경청해 주셔서 감사합니다.
네, 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. 네, 자세하게 내용을 설명을 잘 해주셨는데요. 여러분들 참고 부탁드리겠고요. 저희 이어서 서울시에 소재한 유엔과 그리고 국제기구 현황에 대한 소개를 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 소개에는 서울시 최홍철 국제기구 팀장님을 모셔보도록 하겠습니다. 큰 박수로 맞이해주세요.
예, 안녕하십니까. 서울시 국제교육과 국제기구 팀장 최홍철입니다. 그동안 코로나19로 인해 온라인으로 개최되었던 행사가 대면 행사로 전환되어서 4년 만에 서울시청에서 행사를 개최하게 되었는데 정말 기쁘게 생각합니다. 앞으로도 이 행사를 계속 지속해서 많은 분들께 실질적인 정보를 제공할 수 있기를 희망하며 서울에서 활발히 활동 중인 다양한 분야의 국제기구에 대하여 소개해 드리겠습니다. 국제기구는 한 국가 또는 한 도시에만 국한되는 문제가 아닌 빈곤, 기후변화 등 전 세계적인 공동문제 해결을 위해 노력하는 국제적 협의체입니다. 대부분 국제기구라고 하면 우선적으로 떠올리는 것이 유니세프, WHO 등과 같은 유엔 산하기구들을 알고 계시는데요. 이러한 유엔 산하기구 외에도 정부 간 협정에 따라 설립된 정부 간 기구가 있고 도시를 회원으로 하는 도시간 기구, 그리고 또 다양한 국제 이슈를 다루는 국제 NGO 등도 모두 국제기구에 포함됩니다. 그리고 이들 국제기구는 거버넌스, 경제, 인권, 구호, 환경, 교육, 기술 협력 등 다양한 글로벌 이슈를 해결하고 협력하기 위해 활발한 활동을 전개하고 있습니다. 서울은 국제도시로서 글로벌 네트워크 강화를 위해 영향력 있는 국제기구 유치를 전략적으로 추진해왔고 현재 서울에는 총 38개의 다양한 국제기구가 자리 잡고 있습니다. 보시면 지역적으로 교통 및 인프라 등 입지적 장점이 큰 종로구와 중구의 총 24개의 국제기구가 중점적으로 분포해 있고 그 외 서부권과 강남권 등지에 총 14개의 국제기구가 나누어 위치하고 있습니다. 유형별로 한번 보시면요. OECD, 유니세프, 서울사무소, 유엔세계식량계획, 한국사무소 등과 같은 유엔 및 정부기구가 22개, 서울이 의장도시이기도 한 세계 스마트시티 기구와 시티넷, 그리고 아시아헌법재판소 연합 연구사무국 등과 같은 준정부 또는 도시간 기구가 9개, 유엔 글로벌 컴팩트 한국협회, WWF 세계자연기금, 한국본부, 그리고 유엔협회 세계연맹 등과 같은 국제 NGO가 7개 지금 소재하고 있습니다. 빌딩을 보시면은 서울 글로벌 센터 빌딩인데요. 서울시는 이들 국제기구의 보다 안정적인 활동을 지원하고 교류협력 관계를 강화하고자 2013년부터 국제기구 전용 공간인 서울 글로벌 센터 빌딩을 조성하여 운영하고 있습니다. 종로구에 위치해 있는데요. 본 건물은 지하 4층과 지상 15층 규모로 현재 11개의 국제기구가 외국인 지원기관 등이 입주해 있습니다. 빌딩에 입주한 국제기구들을 좀 더 구체적으로 한번 살펴보겠습니다. 유엔 및 정부 간 기구는 총 7개로 유엔인권 최고대표사무소, 유엔아동기금, 세계은행그룹 등의 서울사무소, 또 세계보건기구 아태환경보건센터, 세계식량농업기구 협력연락사무소, 아셈노인인권정책센터, 유엔 여성기구 성평등센터가 입주해 있습니다. 준정부 간 또는 도시간 기구는 총 4개가 입주해 있습니다. 시티넷, 세계스마트시티기구, 이클레이 동아시아본부, 아시아헌법재판소 연합 연구사무국 등이 입주해 있습니다. 국제기구 전용 공간으로 조성된 만큼 입주 기관들의 만족도가 크고 그리고 신규 입주를 희망하는 국제기구의 수요도 지속적으로 발생하고 있습니다. 다음은 이번 국제기구 진출 설명회에서 서울시에서 주관하는 부대 행사를 안내해드리겠습니다. 다목적 홀 나가시고 왼쪽에 보시면 간담회장이 있는데 그쪽에 저희가 7개 부스를 설치해놨습니다. 총 38개 기구 소재된 서울시에 소재된 기구 중에 7개 국제기구가 여기에 참여해서 채용상담 부스를 운영하고 있습니다. 채용상담 부스는 12시부터 30분까지 계속 운영되고 있고요. 그 평소에 궁금했던 사항이라든가 뭐 이력서 등을 들고 그 인사 및 홍보 담당자에게 물어보고 또 검토받는 그런 뜻깊은 시간을 가지시길 바랍니다. 올해는 그 해외 국제기구와 마찬가지로 모의 면접도 진행하고 있으니 관심 있는 면접 희망자는 현장 접수가 가능하니까요. 모의 면접을 신청해 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 서울시에서는 국제기구 진출 설명회 외에도 서울형 청년 인턴 직무 캠프 사업을 통해서 국제기구 근무를 꿈꾸는 청년들을 지원하고 있습니다. 그 서울형 청년 인턴 직무 캠프 사업은 올해 처음 국제기구 인턴십 부문을 신설해서 그 UN 및 서울 소재기구 등 22기구 기계에 총 55명을 선발했고요. 그 현장 실무 중심의 직무 교육 과정과 인턴십을 접목하여 청년들에게 국제기구 근무 경험을 제공하는 사업입니다. 이번 연도 그 서울형 청년 인턴 직무 캠프 사업은 선발이 종료되었고 내년에도 진행할 예정이니 그 관심 있는 청년들의 많은 참여 바랍니다. 그 앞으로도 서울시는 위상 있는 국제기구 유치 및 지원을 지속하여 국제 경쟁력을 갖춘 도시로 발전할 수 있도록 하겠습니다. 국제기구 진출을 꿈꾸시는 많은 분들이 글로벌 도시 서울과 함께 동행해 주시기를 진심으로 바랍니다. 마지막으로 그 최근 들어 유엔기구 등 정부 간 기구와 더불어서 도시간 기구의 역할도 상당히 증대되고 있습니다. 그 앞서 소개도 드렸는데 도시간 국제기구를 대표하는 위고 세계 스마트 시티 기구와 시티넷을 잠깐 소개해 드리겠습니다. 두 개 기구는 서울시가 의장 도시이기도 하고요. 기구 본부 사무국이 서울시에 위치하고 있어서 그 도시간 네트워크의 중요한 역할을 서울에서 직접 수행하고 있다고 보시면 되겠습니다. 기구 인사 관계자분들을 잠깐 모시고 기구 소개를 좀 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 두 분 잠깐 나오시죠.
네, 여러분 큰 박수 한번 부탁드립니다.
I'll go first. Hello again. I'm Elena, head of program department of WIGO. Some of you here may be familiar with WIGO, but some may not. Compared to other IOs here with us today, WIGO is a newly established organization. We were established 2010 by 50 founding member cities around the world, leading e-government and ICT cooperation. Seoul being one of the present city leading this establishment. And since then, we grew together with the concept of e-government, and today we are committed to transforming cities into smart, sustainable cities by facilitating PPP partnership, public-private partnership. When you think about the word smart city, you may think it's very much focused on technology, but actually I myself majored development policy. I'm not an expert in technology. But if you think about it this way, if you think about your everyday life in today's society, ranging from economy, environment, governance, infrastructure, everything evolves around technology and somehow connected to ICT technology and mechanism. Policy implementations is not possible these days without the application of technology and the right way to combine them together. And that's what we do here at WIGO. We help our member cities together with partners to learn about the better policies and technologies and how to improve the citizens' life better. We address not only that, we also include digital inclusion, addressing the digital inclusion of all ages, races, and gender. We provide feasibility studies, pilot project, implementation of smart city projects, capacity building programs, R&D. These are the main pillars of our activities and programs. So with this mission and value, we look for innovative, creative minds who can build this smart sustainable cities together with WIGO Secretariat. So as I mentioned, we have a booth right over there. So please come forward to know a little bit more about WIGO, and I look forward to meeting you all there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me briefly introduce what the CityNet is doing. Actually, CityNet is an association of urban stakeholders committed to sustainable development in the Asia-Pacific region. Actually, CityNet was officially established in 1987 with the support of UN Habitat, UNDP, and also UNESCO. And then the Secretariat was officially established in the city of Yokohama, Japan in 1992. And after over 2 years of success and growth, the Secretariat was relocated to Seoul in 2013. And since then, as the host of the Secretariat, Seoul has been the host city of the network for the last 10 years. And we now have over 150 members, including city or local governments, NGOs, and research centers. And our mission is to connect urban actors and deliver tangible solutions for our members across the across the Asia-Pacific region. So we usually help our members to respond to climate change, disaster, and the sustainable development goals through city-to-city cooperation, knowledge sharing, and capacity building programs. And like other organizations, CityNet is also looking for talented persons as interns and officers. And especially, we welcome applicants who have high level of interest in urban planning, urban development, or SDGs. We are welcoming them. We are also, if you are willing to develop your career in the field of the intercity diplomacy, diplomacy at the city level, working at CityNet will be a good choice. Okay, so if you are really interested in kind of urban planning, also local diplomacy, please visit our booth in that area. Thank you very much for listening.
예, 소개 감사합니다. 그럼 이상으로 서울 소재 국제기구에 대한 발표를 마치겠습니다. 끝까지 경청해 주셔서 감사합니다. 감사합니다.
네, 여러분 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드립니다. 네, 저희 발표가 마무리가 됐고요. 오늘 설명회 함께 들어주신 분들 진심으로 감사드리고요. 제가 이제 이후에 일정을 소개를 좀 하도록 하겠습니다. 헷갈리지 마시고 총 3그룹으로 나눠서 설명을 하도록 하겠습니다. 잠시 후 14시 30분, 14시 30분이죠. 이제부터 한 5분 더 추가해서 35분까지 쉬는 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 총 14분 정도 쉬실 수가 있는데요. 그 이후에 기구별 심층 세션이 진행될 예정입니다. 3개의 그룹을 나눠 가질 예정이니까 참여 희망하는 곳에 가셔서 하시면 됩니다. 자, 먼저 유엔사무국, ICC, OECD, UNDP, 유네스코 심층 세션 참석을 희망하시는 분들은 이쪽 저희 스크린에 보시는 것처럼 잠시 쉬었다가 이곳 다목적 홀에 다시 와주시면 되고요. 시작 5분 전까지는 꼭 참석 부탁드리겠습니다. 자, 그리고 두 번째는 지하 2층 태평홀인데요. 저희 2층 태평홀로 가지 마시고 1층으로 내려가 주세요. 1층에 가시면은 안내 직원분들께서 함께 해주실 겁니다. 유니세프, UN, OCHA, WHO 세션은 저희 1층에서 안내 직원분들 따라가시면 됩니다. 그리고 마지막 세션은 IAEA와 WFP입니다. 3층 소회의실 1으로 가시면 됩니다. 3층 소회의실 1에서 각각 진행될 예정이니까 헷갈리지 마시고 다시 한번 참고 부탁드리겠고요. 지하 2층 태평홀 아니고 1층에서 대기하고 계시면 안내 직원분들이 함께 하실 예정입니다. 그 이후에는 모의 면접 세션까지 함께 진행될 예정이니까 오늘 추후 일정까지 함께 해주시고요. 그리고 지금 현재 간담회장 1, 같은 층 1에서는 서울시 소재, 국제기구 홍보점도 운영이 되어 있습니다. 여러분들 많은 참여 부탁드리겠습니다. 채용 상담 부스도 운영되고 있으니까요. 많은 참여 부탁드리겠습니다. 자, 오늘 관심 많이 부탁드리고요. 끝까지 함께 해주시면 감사하겠습니다. 이상으로 마치겠습니다. 고맙습니다.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to UN Secretariat, ICC, OECD, UNDP, and UNESCO group session. My name is Chae-young Lim, and I am Second Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Korea, and I will be serving as your moderator for the session today. Before we get started, I would like to take a few minutes to remind you that a survey sheet has been distributed earlier for us to better understand your level of satisfaction and opinions regarding the International Career Fair. Please fill out the form and submit it at the registration desk after the end of this session. Since we have listened to the self-introduction by our speakers during the previous session, we will begin this group session without further delay. Before we start, considering the time limit, I would like to kindly remind our esteemed speakers to keep their presentations short and sweet, up to 15 minutes. Each speaker's presentation will be followed by 5 minutes of Q&A session. First, I would like to invite Mr. Kwon Hong-seok, Chief of Strategic Talent Management Service, to the floor. Please welcome Mr. Kwon with a big round of applause.
Thank you so much once again, and again, great pleasure meeting with all of you, and good to see the high level of enthusiasm and energy and interest in the UN organizations. I'm going to use stopwatch for 15 minutes. Okay. Okay, very brief self-introduction. As I said, currently I work as the Chief of Strategic Talent Management Service in the UN Secretariat. I passed the YPP in 1993. Sounds very old. And I worked in the private sector for 4.5 years before taking the exam in 1993. I started UN career in the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific in Bangkok. I worked as a program officer in the transport and infrastructure development. And then I badly wanted to move to New York, and there was only job available in human resources, so I moved to human resources. And since then, I have been in various areas of human resources. And I also worked in UNESCO for 2 years and had the privilege of working with Rosella and Aina. I finished my high school in Korea. I went to Seoul High School. Anybody from Seoul High School? No one. Such a great school, but no one went there. And then I moved to Africa, Kenya, Africa, and I started my university study in Africa, and I moved to the US and finished my study. Okay, that's it for my self-introduction. I'll go very quickly about the UN system and priorities of the UN Secretariat and key workforce capabilities that we have developed. Also, we'll have a brief explanation about the UN Global Talent Pool, and we'll give you tips for how to fill out application and prepare for written assessment and interview skills, and we will take questions. Just to give you an overview of how large the UN system is, and all the organizations except OECD are presented in this map. And my point here is, don't try to limit your scope of searching for jobs only in one organization. Cast a wide net. We call it casting a wide net, right? And many organizations have different jobs in different areas, but also jobs in common areas. So don't try to limit your scope in terms of searching for jobs in one or two organizations. Look for, go to the website of every single organization, and any job interests you. Just to give you quick facts and figures about the UN Secretariat, we do have staff members from 190 plus countries. Do you know how many member states are part of the UN system? This is a quiz, and if you get it correct, I'll give you my name card, and you can contact me. Yes. 193개. 뒷분도 하셨거든요. 네. 193. So, yeah. Correct. I'll give you my name cards later on, or my email address. We have 470 plus duty stations. We do have 36,000 plus staff members around the globe. We do have 6 official languages. Which are 6 official languages? Anybody? Yes. Arabic, yeah. Russian, yes, correct. I'll give you my name card too. We do have 9 job networks. I'll get into that later. And we do have 10 plus employee resource groups. And we do have staff representatives and also disability inclusion employee resource group and LGBTQI group as well. As I said, one of the highest priorities in the UN Secretariat is to have a diverse and inclusive workforce. To fulfill that objective, we are implementing a number of strategies as provided here. Gender equality and parity strategy. Our goal is to have 50-50 men and women by 2028. We have reached that goal in what we call non-field mission duty stations. But in field mission duty stations, because of working environment, we do have about 65 men and 35% women. So we are still working on that. Geographical representation strategy, disability inclusion strategy, youth 2030 strategy, and strategic action plan on anti-racism, evolved from the social movements that took place in 2020. And we place a great importance on workplace mental health strategy. Because of COVID and new ways of working, a lot of people are stressed and there's no enough interaction amongst the team members. So, we do have issues in mental health, and we are working on elevating mental health in workplace. Based on evolving needs of the UN Secretariat in terms of mandates, and also based on the various studies and analysis that we have done, also outside organizations have done, like consulting companies and World Economic Forum, we have come up with these key workforce capabilities that we want our staff to have, not to have a specialized knowledge to work in these specialized areas, but to have these capabilities across different functions. And we also want candidates who have these kind of skills. So quickly going through strategic foresight. Strategic foresight is the ability to forecast what we are going to need in the future. Data analysis and communications, performance and results orientation. We don't want to just say for the sake of saying, no more rhetoric, but we want to have concrete results on the ground to have a positive impact on people and the countries that we work with. Innovation and digital transformation. Innovation is very important and creativity very important. Digital transformation, I think the Director General Kang, I think, talked about it before. Behavioral science, another capability that we want our candidates and also staff to have. Human rights approach, partnership, resource mobilization, climate action, crisis response, and strategic communication. These are the abilities and capabilities that we highlight. And if you get a chance, please train yourself on these key workforce capabilities. Nowadays, there are a lot of resources available for learning opportunities on the internet, even free of charge. So please, try to work on enhancing skills in these areas. The slide provides the opportunities through which you can join the UN Secretariat and also the areas that we hire people. You can join the Secretariat by applying to regular job openings or temporary job openings. Also internships, consultancies, UN volunteers, these are talked about before by previous speakers, a young professionals program, and JPOs. And this table provides the minimum number of years of experience that are required at the level. P2, minimum 2 years, P3, 5, so on and so forth. And at the D2 level, over 15 years. And mostly people at these respective levels have more than this minimum level of experience. These are the 9 job networks I talked about in the previous slide. The Secretariat provides the vast number of opportunities in economic and social development, public information, conference management, translators, interpreters, editors, information and telecommunication, technology management, administration, finance, budget, accounting, procurement, human resources, the most exciting area of all. The legal network, lawyers, we need lawyers. Logistics, transportation, supply chain, it's very important because we also move equipment and staff to field missions and other countries, so that becomes has become very important. Political, peace, and humanitarian. Internal security and safety. What I mean by that is to protect the UN facilities, not people of countries, but to protect UN facilities and staff. So we need safety and security. Science network, we need doctors, we need nurses. So, when you think about the UN, normally you think about human rights, peace building, peacekeeping operations, economic and social development, but in fact, more opportunities are available in areas like management administration, IT, and for career development opportunities, those are the areas where we do have more job openings because we do have more positions. So that's something to think about. Just to give you some numbers for staff in the UN, Korean staff in the UN Secretariat and applications trend of Korean nationals for job openings in the UN Secretariat. As of June 2023, we do have 219 staff members across all grade levels and categories. About 64% women, 36% men. Overall, Secretariat, we do have 44% women and 56% men. But as I said, in non-field mission locations, we do have 50-50, male and female. But field missions, we do have 35 female and 65 male. About 82% of 219 work in the professional and higher categories, and also about 10% work in senior positions at the P5 and above levels, and about 17% in GS and 1% in field service category. The field service category positions are only available in peacekeeping missions. They work in 27 duty stations, and majority of them are in New York, 44%, followed by Geneva, Bangkok, Incheon, and Bonn and Vienna. JPOs have increased, number of JPOs has increased from on average of 3.8 JPOs from 2014, 2018 to now 8.4% from 19 to 23. As of June 2023, we do have 24 JPOs, and I have 2 JPOs, Korean JPOs in my team as well. They are great and wonderful, excellent. Korea is what we call within range member state, no longer underrepresented as of June 2023. I think these, seminars are helping. Applications, it's very competitive. From 2017 to 2023, there were 19,000 plus applications from Korean nationals. Only 1,379 got shortlisted, and 129 got selected. 129 is 0.7%. So it's very competitive. Just to give you an idea. Doesn't mean that you should give up. You can still be part of 0.7% who gets selected. We do have more female applications, so 54% applications. 54% of applications from Korean nationals are by women, and they apply to positions in New York, Geneva, Bangkok, Incheon City, and Nairobi, mostly in economic and social development, political peace and humanitarian network, management and administration. But we also need applications for information technology, logistics, security and safety, science, legal and information networks. Mostly they apply to P3 and P4, 47% for P3 positions, 27% for P4, followed by P2, P5, and D1. I'm going to talk about the UN Global Talent Pool in a subsequent slide, just to give you a success rate in terms of percentages. The top chart, the numbers have gone up, right? So more Koreans are getting screened in. I'll talk about that, what it means. And also the selection rates are going up, but still very competitive. Females do better. Women do better than men. Right? So, no comment on that. Gentlemen. For Q1, Q2 of 2023, we had 268 applications from Korean nationals. 211 got screened in. Only 15 got shortlisted, and 2 were selected. All 2 were women. No man was selected for Q1 and Q2. Let me move on. How am I doing with time? Wow. Okay, talent pool. This is, we are building a database of those who are interested in working for UN organizations. Not all UN organizations are participating in this initiative. Those who are interested create a very short profile providing their demographic information, areas of expertise, and areas of interest. Those are not applications. When vacancies come up in the participating organizations, and you may be, if you are part of the talent pool, they may contact you based on their needs and encourage you to apply for actual vacancies. It's a subscription based. You have a QR code up there, so if you want to be part of it, please submit your profile. Okay, quickly, I know I'm sort of behind the time. Quick overview of selection process. Important. Spend enough time in searching for positions that interest you. Do not just apply or submit applications for the sake of applying. Right? You have to be attracted to a particular job, and you have to be suitable to have a chance of being selected. So be realistic, but as I said, cast a wide net. Okay. How many of you have submitted application for the jobs in the UN Secretariat? Okay, a few of them. What's your impression? Very lengthy and complicated because the application includes all these sections. Motivational statement, education, training, professional experience, personal experience, languages, and references. However, you have to put in enough time to prepare your applications. Right? Our recruitment tool automatically screens out applications that do not meet minimum years of experience. So you provide your experience, the tool will add up using logic and AI. And if you, let's say the position requires 7 years and you have only 6 years, you will be automatically screened out. Languages, very important. If the position requires English, you have to indicate your English is proficient in writing, reading, speaking, listening, and all of those criteria. If you say proficient in reading but confident in writing, you will automatically be screened out. So keep that in mind. I don't suggest that you should lie, but something that you should keep in mind. So once you get screened in by the tool, and about 50% of applications get screened out by the tool, and 50% are forwarded to the hiring manager. The hiring manager reviews based on the criteria and establish a shortlist. And shortlisted candidates will be invited to a written assessment. Once you are invited to a written assessment, it's important that you study the job opening, the competencies specified in the job opening, and responsibilities, and also the department, the work of the department. A lot of resources are available on the website, so please put in enough time to study and also read about some of the priorities in the job network that position is in. What are some of the emerging priorities, let's say, in management and administration in the UN. Again, consider all you know about the job and prepare sample questions and answer those sample questions as practice. It's important. And make sure that when you are ready to work on the assessment, make sure that your internet connection is good, your laptop is ready, and do it. Interviews. The UN Secretariat interviews are based on competencies that we have. We do have 7 core competencies, 7 managerial competencies and 8 core competencies. Why competency-based interviews? They are known as one of the most adequate, accurate predictor of a future performance of the candidate. So you have to provide actual experience that you have had in answering any of the competency questions. Now, in the UN Secretariat, we have developed a new values and behaviors framework that will replace the competencies in recruitment and performance management. We have not replaced the competencies with the new values and behaviors in recruitment. So those competencies are still valid in terms of interviews. I'm a bit pressed for time, so I'm going to move on. Again, as for the written exams, to prepare for interview, you have to put in enough time and study and learn about the department and the job, the office, prepare sample responses, and the competencies required for the job that you are applying to are specified in the job opening. There are mostly 3 to 5 competencies specified. For each competency, prepare 2 or 3 responses, sample, so you have to come up with the sample questions and sample responses. And practice in front of your friend, family member, or mirror. And time it. And ideal response is about 3 minutes to 5 maximum. You should not exceed 5 minutes per response. Ideal response includes what we call CARL. Context, the challenge, the situation that you want. Because, as I said, you have to provide the actual response, right? So when you provide the actual example, the example should include what was the situation, right? What was the context? What sort of challenge you had? And what were the actions that you actually took? And what were the results of your actions? And what did you learn from that experience? So include those elements in your response. Quick example, challenge, Beth is a candidate. She was asked to look at the office's cloud storage system, which was disorganized and hard to use. And action she took, she analyzed the folders, reorganized so information was more logically arranged and easier to find. Result, she made the team's work easier, which saved time, more efficient and effective. What did she learn? The putting time in the beginning actually helps in enhancing the effectiveness and efficiency of the work and the team. These are some of the sample questions. So professionalism is always there. Right? It's always there. It's just to test whether you have a professional competence and the mastery of subject matter. Right? So for example, sample question, why are you interested in this job? Why are you the most qualified candidate? Planning and organizing is to see the ability to identify priority. How do you prioritize activities and the deadlines, right, of multiple deadlines? Whether you use information technology and people, team members. So tell me about the time where you had a number of demands being made on you at the same time. How did you handle it? How did you prioritize different deadlines? Technology awareness is to see the ability of understanding applicability and limitations of technology to the work of the office. Can you give me an example of when technology breakdown had an impact on your deliverable? What did you do? What were the implications? Communication. Tell us about the time when you had to explain something complex to a colleague or client. Which problems did you encounter and how did you deal with them? Important thing to remember, you have to be honest, right? If you tell an untrue story, then the panel, they're so experienced, they'll find out whether you're telling the truth or not. Again, prepare, put in enough time, study, and practice. Important. I'm going to end my presentation with a quote from the current Secretary General. We face a moment of truth. Now is the time to deliver and restore trust and inspire hope. And I do have hope. Humanity has shown that we are capable of great things when we work together. That is the raison d'etre of our United Nations. I hope you join this cause and hope that I will see you in the UN building at some point in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kwon, for your very interactive presentation. We will now open the floor for questions. Let me remind you that we only have 5 minutes, so we will accept 2 questions. Please raise your hand if you have any questions. Our staff will hand you over the microphone. Mr. Kwon, would you please, lady in the right, please? Yeah.
Yeah, in the middle. Yeah. Sorry, I ran over time. My apologies.
Oh,
it's okay.
Thank you for giving me a chance to talk with you. My name is Minji Oh. Before I ask my question, can I get your name card as well?
Okay.
Thanks. Let me introduce myself briefly. I'm currently working at one of government organization, legal and safety part, so that's why I am especially interested in United Nations and ICC. My question is this: if I miss JPO or YPP, it will be hard for me to get the position in the United Nations, because as of this year, I'm 30 years old. That means I only have 2 years left. So this is my question. Thanks.
I mean, those are 2 different tracks, right? So I would suggest that you pursue both tracks and see what happens, right? And both programs have different eligibility criteria, and JPO also, so YPP is for the UN Secretariat, but JPO is available in a number of UN organizations, which are also present here today. So my suggestion is to pursue both tracks and see where you land. Does that answer your question? Yes. And also YPP, we do not offer all the job networks in 1 year. So we offer different job networks depending on our needs. So, your expertise may not be offered YPP, let's say, for 2023 or 2024. That means you have to wait. So my suggestion is to pursue both tracks. Yes.
Hello. I am honored that you gave me an opportunity to talk. And first of all, I would love to thank you for the inspiring and comprehensive talk on your career. Personally, I am interested in a UNHR career job, actually. And I have seen that you already had experience in the United Nations before you started your UNHR career job. So that brought me the question of, are there many different people with many different prior work experience backgrounds? Like some people maybe have worked in the private sector HR and then moved to the UN HR, or there are people that actually worked in the UN field and then transferred to the HR. So obviously there is no set answer in approaching the job, but is there a kind of more bigger percentage of people's prior job experiences in the field? And also, before you answer the question, I would also love to have your contacts, please.
Okay. Of course.
Thank you very much.
Most of, let's say, people who join through YPP, they do have some experience. While the minimum eligibility requirement for YPP, they do not really require experience. However, those who apply and are successful, become successful, do have a bit of prior experience. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be HR, for example. We don't really look for experience in HR. HR or other management or administration areas is fine. Program management is also fine. We are more going towards looking for skills and the workforce capabilities that I have mentioned than looking for whether you have HR experience to be an HR or not, right? I personally prefer at the junior level those who have analytical skills, digital skills, data skills and digital transformation skills than HR experience. So, but many of do have prior experience in various areas, not necessarily in HR. I'm sure these colleagues will, speak for that as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. So this ends the session for UN Secretariat presentation. Again, thank you so much, Mr. Kwon, for your valuable presentation. Next, we will invite Ms. Daiga Barone, Talent Acquisitions Team Lead of ICC, to the floor. Please welcome her with a big round of applause.
How this works. Hello, everyone. It feels like before exam. I think the same feeling you had recently. Can you help me? Can you help me, someone with a remote control? I haven't used that one. How I will go? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. After such an impressive presentation, I will be short. I'm actually quite new in this international organizational environment. I joined in ICC 5 years ago, and I think I'm an example that you can join from private sector, from your country to a national environment. And I joined in a professional level, having extensive experience in HR and administration and holding a master's degree in psychology. So I hope it will give you inspiration that it is possible and you can make it happen. I fully support the message shared before that you need to prepare and you need to invest time. When I moved from Latvia to Netherlands, I spent 1 year for looking for a job, and I was happy enough after 1 year working on it to succeeding and get this opportunity for ICC. Before I start, I want to share a little bit about ICC. ICC is not UN organization, but we follow UN practices. So ICC is International Criminal Court, and it was established after having several situation-related tribunals. In 1998, in UN diplomatic conference, Rome Statutes were signed, and Rome Statutes established that each country should work on investigation and trialing criminal situations. And ICC is a last resort for such cases. When country is not able to investigate and prosecute criminal war-related crimes, then they are sent to us. So our mandate is to end most serious crimes by investigating, prosecuting, and trialing individuals who have committed those crimes, like genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, crimes of aggression. We are also working on prevention of those crimes by educating society about consequences. So, important thing to know that we are investigating and prosecuting individuals who have committed crimes, not states, countries. So to make it happen, we actually need to have person submitted to us. Person needs to be in a courtroom. Yeah. So, and we do it only when a country is not able to do it by itself. ICC has three organs: presidency, judicial division, where are judges and lawyers, and then we have Office of the Prosecutor, where we usually have investigators, forensic analysts and experts, and registry, which provides support to both of those organs. Also, we have an Assembly of State Parties, which is working with our donor states parties on a relationship. Important also part is Trust Fund for Victims, where we provide support to those who actually have suffered from war crimes, and when the trial is completed, we are able to support them. Currently, we are having 900 staff members from 100 different states. From Asia Pacific, we are having 64 staff members. We are looking forward to welcome you. Korea is heavily underrepresented. So comparing to UN, actually there is higher opportunity for you to succeed. So I would highly advise you to apply, especially now when GPO program also will be launched. Now we are part of this program, so I encourage you to use this opportunity. We have two working languages, English or French. I need to specify that you don't need to have both of these languages in the same level. You need to have one language. So if you are fluent in English, it's fully enough. And you will have opportunities to learn French during your work. We provide courses. Headquarters is based in Hague. It's in Netherlands. It's a nice location with a coast, museums, Van Gogh, and Escher. So it's those who love art, there are things to see. Food is not the best, but we have access to different things. Yeah, we are not as France. We can't compete with that. I hope there are not Dutch people here in the room. We are also having 9 country offices, mainly in Africa region. Now we are working on opening new country offices in Ukraine and Sudan because of the situation in the world. Yeah, that's things to know. Also, there is a myth or perception that we are hiring only lawyers as we are the court, and that's actually not true, because we are also having a lot of investigators, forensic analysts and experts. Mainly they are working in Office of the Prosecutor. They can have a background of military or police. So that's an actually quite growing part of the court currently. Also, we are having high number of administrative not assistants, also administrative staff, including HR. And then it's not mandatory to have a legal education to be an HR or any other administrative supportive function representative. We are also having quite a high number of security officers, as we have a detention center where all those who have committed crimes are held during the process and afterwards. And of course, we need a lot of language specialists for interpretation and translation, because when we have victims from areas where the crime has happened, we need to ensure that we can understand them and properly. So there are a lot of opportunities. Not all are mentioned here. We also have psychologists who are working with the victims, trauma experts, of course, finance, accounting, procurement specialists, and different kind of other specialists. So if you are interested, please look in our webpage. There are all open vacancies available. So what we offer quite similar things to our staff members as UN, as we are not part of the UN, but we follow the rules. So we are having the same salary scale and benefits according to insurance and pension funds. Doesn't sound interesting at the moment, but later in life you will understand that it's important. It's a great opportunity to have and work in international environment. As I said, we have 100 different nationalities working there, so it's really diverse. We provide different learning opportunities, virtual and face-to-face, flexible working arrangements. After pandemic, we have learned that it's possible to work also from home, and if before it was like, oh my God, it's not possible, we all need to be in office, and now we have a rule that you can work 2 days per week from your home. We are not there yet ready to allow people to work from their home countries. That's not still possible, but still. Parental leave, we are following UN rules, so it's now will be 6 months. Believe me, one day you will understand that it's important to have such, and 6 months go fast. After pandemic, and I think we all have learned that it is important to focus on well-being and engagement, because we all have experienced different difficulties during this period. So we are having quite a lot of activities for staff to cope with these things, usually organized by staff union, which is following that we all are in balance. As mentioned, yeah, we have the similar approach to professional and general services categories. I won't go here in depth. It just shows that you don't need a master degree or bachelor degree to enter the organization. You can start with a general services level where you just need a secondary education and several years of experience. Years of experience we are assessing similar like UN, so you can find it in a web page how many years you need to qualify. I really advise you to follow and submit your applications. As mentioned by my colleague, it takes some time, but I think it's also first test of your motivation. If you succeed by filling all the forms and providing all the information, you're already one step closer. If it's asked to submit motivation letter, it's a must. If vacancy announcement says that this is required, it means it's a must. You need to show in your applications that you have this experience, you have this knowledge. Be smart, be creative around it. There are a lot of examples on the internet how you can define. Also for women, don't be limited in your mindset, because research says that women always says that if 60% is not, no, it's 100% you are not matching the criteria, so in a vacancy announcement that we don't apply. Just be aware of this and still apply, because you are actually, you know more than you think so. What we are paying quite a lot of attention is a geographical representation. Yeah, I'm saying 5 minutes. And gender, as we are welcoming and opening our doors for those who are underrepresented and non-represented. Of course, recruitment process is similar like in UN, it's competitive. You need to compete, you need to go through assessment process. Assessment process can include written tests, scenario-based questions. It's also competency-based questions. It can be, prepare action plan for strategy. I would also advise, for example, in an ICC webpage, you can find all strategies of Office of the Prosecutor, Registrar, Presidency, and a court. If you read these strategies, that can also help you understand what court is aiming to achieve in next period, and to think how you could contribute for this. Internship and visiting professional programs, it's a great start how to discover, is this international organization and environment is for you, is this a career path you want to follow. For internship, you don't need to have you need to have a minimal work experience, and you need to be in the end of your education. Internship is maximum to 6 months. Visiting professional program is you need to have a little bit more than 3 years of experience, and you need to have a relevant degree. I think I really encourage you to follow what we do differently comparing to UN. We are having postings of vacancies through all the year. It's not like one big recruitment, and we have separate recruitments per. It's several recruitments, and they are specific. So, for example, if you are interested to work in Office of Prosecution in investigations, then there is an internship for investigations. If you want to work in HR, for example, my team is looking for interns from talent acquisitions, so you can apply. And there are other internships like for victims and witnesses section. So if there is specific interest of your professional path, you can find internship or visiting professional program and apply. Usually internships and visiting professional programs are not funded, but students from underdeveloped countries can receive funding. Unfortunately, South Korea is not in that group. But unfortunately, or fortunately, South Korea is part of Junior Professional Program, and we are part of this program, so I highly advise you to sign up for this. As mentioned before, you just need to be less than 32 years old, so you still have enough time. You need to have some experience, you need to have a degree, and we have a contract with South Korea. It's why we are here. I will be happy to welcome you one day at court. I also encourage you to follow us on social media. We are quite active in Instagram and LinkedIn. For those who are seriously considering to look for a job, I advise to create a LinkedIn account if you don't have it yet. It's really important because most of the UN and other organizations are communicating quite actively with potential members through social media. So that's it from my side, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Barone, for your informative presentation. So we will now open the floor for questions once again. Please raise your hand if you have a question. Yes, please, directly in the front. Yeah, I think my staff will come over.
First of all, thank you for your time today. It was really great to be here. And I just want to introduce just myself briefly. My name is Soo-yeon Park, which is, you can call me Sue, which is English name. And I have worked in hotel for 5 years. And then now I'm gonna have an opportunity to work in International Bar Association from coming 16th of July. So I will be there for 6 months approximately. And my question is do you think the master degree is necessary for candidates like me? Actually, my major is economics. So do you have any recommendation for the major when I want to study master? And the second question is, I said that I will work for IBA, which is Bar Association in Asia, branch in Seoul. And do you think the experience working in IBA will help for me to apply to IECC as well? Thank you.
Thank you. My personal opinion is it's always good to go for higher education. So it is worth to invest in yourself and go for a master degree. It will pay off one day, and if not, it's always useful to be smart enough to navigate through the life. I think it is worth to invest. Your experience in a bar association can help. It's beneficial to have such experience. Any exposure which is linked with your future vision of your professional path is useful, and it can support. It doesn't mean that it guarantees that the doors will be open, but if there is opportunities, I would say go for it, and you will be surprised maybe one day.
The gentleman in the front, yes.
Hello, we've spoken earlier. Yes. I've worked with the National Police for about 8 years. I have two questions. Number one, if you're from an underrepresented country, just about how much advantage do you get compared to the candidates from fairly represented countries? That's my first question. Number two is, I've noticed from your vacancies that you don't only offer positions in The Hague, but also elsewhere in field duty stations in Africa or in Eastern Europe. Are positions in The Hague more popular than those field duty stations? And are those field duty stations, are they suitable, are they family friendly? Because there may be people here who might who might consider moving with their family. So if you could comment on those two questions, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
The last one about family friendly, not all places are family friendly, and usually you find out it in a process or it can be mentioned in a vacancy announcement. I think positions in headquarters is always more attractive because they are safer and not everyone is so willing to be in different areas, but I wouldn't when you consider applying, wouldn't think about that. I think you should just apply as maximum you can, and wherever you see you are a match for a position. You never know. Regarding what kind of credit it gives if you are from underrepresented or non-represented countries, in a process, as it is competitive process, first you need to be successful in a written test and interview. And it doesn't give any advantage in that process. Everyone is equally treated in that process. Later on, it can give advantage if a principal who is actually approving a person, at least at court, what it is we are looking on those directions, that if they see that there are equally qualified candidates for that position, that it can be that the preference goes for underrepresented country. But I can't ensure that it's always the truth, and it happens like that. My advice is just apply, invest time. There are a lot of tutorials and videos in YouTube how to prepare for competence-based interviews recorded by colleagues from UN, also about scenario and written tests and all these things. Just really invest. When I looked for international work, I was spending quite a lot of time just thinking how to present my experience, because I knew that in my little country I was known, I had some experience, but in this big world, like, who knows who I am? So I needed to really think how to write a motivation letter, how to present my skills, and it takes some time, but it pays off. It pays off. I will be there afterwards.
As much as we want to hear more about ICC, for the sake of time and because we have to hear from other organizations, we will wrap up the session for ICC. Thank you again so much, Ms. Barone, for your presentation. Next, we will welcome Mr. Lyle Cameron, a talent management analyst at OECD, to the floor. Please give a big round of applause to Mr. Cameron.
Thank you very much, and hello again. It's great to be here, as I said before. So I'm Lyle Cameron. I've been at the OECD now for just over 6 years, I work in the Talent Management and Analytics Group, which is part of the human resource function in the OECD based in Paris, in France. My team works on HR analytics, different corporate recruitment functions as well. I have colleagues who are working on the JPO. We have the other programs which we'll talk to you about shortly, and we also look at learning development as well. So, a lot of what you'll hear today from me is what my wonderful colleagues have already told you so far. We're not part of the UN, but obviously as an international organization, we follow very similar procedures. I'll touch briefly. Do you all know the OECD? Can you put your hand up if you've heard of the OECD? Okay, so a fair few. Okay, great. So I can skip quickly through what we are and how we work and get on to the exciting stuff about the opportunities and how you can join us in beautiful Paris. And I can confirm the food is probably better in Paris than in The Hague. So, OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. What are we? We're a knowledge forum and we work to shape policies that foster prosperity, equality, opportunity and well-being for all. So we're 38 member countries, of which Korea is one. Although we're only 38 member countries, we work with 70 partner countries across the world, including some of the world's largest economies, which helps contribute to the relevance of the policy work that we're delivering. Together with our member countries and our partner countries, we account for 80% of world trade and investment with our member countries, and they collaborate together on the different goals of the OECD. Here you can see our list of our member countries in blue. We also have 5 accession countries, so these are countries on the way to becoming OECD members, so we're getting bigger as we advance. And we also work with some key partner countries as well. If you had to add into this the different countries that we work with on specific projects and services, we're truly a global organization. Okay, I'm going to run through this quickly because it's boring. Born in 1961, we've just celebrated our 60th birthday. Happy birthday us. But we go back slightly further. So the OECD was really came about to implement the Marshall Plan, which looked at rebuilding Europe after World War II. We're based in Paris, but we also have centres across the world, but these are mostly our public affairs and communications centres. So I would say probably 95% plus of our staff, and certainly those that are working on policy work and analysis and data, are based in Paris. Budget funded by member countries, no surprise, and official languages we have 2, English and French. So one of the biggest questions we always get asked is if we have to speak French and English, and the short answer is no, absolutely you do not. We ask that you're proficient in one of the official languages and show a willingness to learn the other language. Believe me, if you come to Paris, you probably want to quickly learn some French, and it helps. And we also offer multiple training opportunities for staff. Things like podcasts, we have an interactive app, we have face-to-face learning. So it's a really, really good opportunity if you want to brush up on your français. Okay, how it works, very quickly then. We follow a robust process, and during this time we're working with different organizations, different international organizations, different governments across the world, also with citizens as well, and academia. We cover, if you think about what a government does, we basically cover it all. We have a directorate for each. With the exception, I would say, of defense, we cover things, for example, trade, agriculture, financial affairs, tax, education, environment, energy, education. It's a really exciting place to be. A part of the OECD as well is, what's great about being a staff member is that I am in HR. I know nothing about tax or international energy, but I get invited to seminars or online things, especially now with COVID. Everything's available on Zoom usually as well. So you can learn about stuff. You might have an interest in tax policy and say, I've received an invite to look at sustainable development. So you listen to it and who knows, maybe a brand new career for you. So it's exciting. I'm going to touch on a few of these things. So you may have heard of pizza, like not the delicious Italian dough-based food. Pizza, not pizza. And through since 2020, working with more than 90 countries and economies, we've tested over 3 million students. So the PISA looks at the assessment of 15-year-olds in different areas such as science, mathematics and stuff like that. So again, we said 38 members, but obviously working a lot more globally. International Energy Agency. I already spoke to people about the International Energy Agency as well, but they are part of the OECD, also based in Paris, at the heart of data and analysis, looking at providing secure and sustainable energy as well. Finally then, in this area, I'm going to take a breath. The Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Tax Information, tax purposes. So you may have heard of that as well, with which we work with more than 160 members. These are super useful resources for applying for your job. So you may want to take a picture of this, but for example, you may think you want a job in a certain area, but within those different areas, as I said, tax, there's multiple different divisions working on multiple different projects related to tax. So you might have heard of the tax director and it interests you, but the teams may be working on completely different things.
Several SDGs, and coin yourself and gear your CV and your professional experience towards that said SDG, so that you can put on LinkedIn, I am SDG 1, no poverty specialist. And in 5 words, you've actually encapsulated what we as HR professionals are trying to find. So this is actually a powerful way to present yourself. UNDP is one of the leading agencies when it comes to the development agenda by working hand in hand with governments and in the international community, is implementing and developing and implementing policies towards long-term sustainable development. It's an ambitious agenda with many different aspects to it. We are not a humanitarian agency. We don't deal with catastrophe when they happen. We deal with preventing catastrophes and recovering from them, for example. We have a large mandate, as I was saying, but it is divided into what we call signature solutions that you can see here. So again, if you're interested in the programmatic aspect of working with the UN, and in this case the UNDP, you may want to have a look at these different signature solutions when it comes to, for example, zero poverty, poverty reduction. UNDP is certainly not the only agency working on poverty reduction, but we are quite present helping governments in developing long-term strategies to eradicate poverty, making sure that we do not leave anyone behind. Typically poverty pockets eliminations, like some certain regions or minorities who may not benefit from economic growth. This is the type of agenda UNDP is working on. So what does that mean for you? Typically economists or anyone who has studied similar activities related to economic issues. Governance. UNDP is one of the leading agencies when it comes to the governance agenda of the UN system. We are basically behind more or less all democratic elections taking place in developing countries. So typically people studying or with experience in rule of law or political sciences, political affairs, this type of profiles would be of great interest to us on these topics. Resilience, I briefly mentioned it. UNDP is present in most countries which have been affected by war or natural catastrophes, and we help governments in developing policies to prevent such catastrophes again. So we are in places like Yemen, Afghanistan, Haiti, etc. So again, for those of you who are interested in some more hardship duty stations or where the challenges are quite high, UNDP has quite a few job opportunities there. Climate action, again, UNDP, because of its multifaceted mandate, has many different elements related to the SDGs, including climate action and the overall energy and environment, because together with climate action, we have also sustainable energy agenda. So typically, those of you who are maybe engineers studying natural resources management, or maybe moving away from fossil energy to renewable energies, would be interested in our job opportunities in UNDP. Gender equality is also underpinning all our activities. We're not the only ones. All UN agencies really have a gender component usually in their activities. But again, many job opportunities there if that's what you're interested in. I'm going awfully fast there because actually all these slides, which you may not be even able to read at the back of the room, are extracts from our annual report. And again, the importance to do your homework and to make sure that when you apply, you understand what you're applying for is quite critical. Hence the importance to identify documents like an annual report or specific websites, for example, where you can find the said information. So make sure that you invest in time in understanding what the positions you're applying for, from internships down to regular positions, so that we see that you have a real, genuine interest in joining us. Building a career with UNDP is no different than building a career with other UN organizations or international organizations. That's why I was saying that all the tips you've heard so far are also applicable to UNDP. Because at the end of the day, most of you want to work for the greater good, and in the case of UNDP for development activities. But at the end of the day, it also depends on opportunities that you may have and your expertise also, which will have you ending in one place or another. Because the mindset is quite the same throughout. So I will not go into these details about the workforce of UNDP, etc., because my colleagues have presented their setup, and it's quite similar. UNDP has an international presence, and a wide number of nationalities and a lot of opportunities for all. But when it comes to the mindset you're bringing, and again, this is not only applicable to UNDP, but I'd like to say a few things here. Motivation, first of all. It is critical that you convey your motivation, no matter how you are being selected, if it's maybe a cover letter, if it's maybe a written, a video interview where you have to record a video like our colleagues from the OECD do, etc. But make sure that you're conveying your passion. You will not be selected because of your passion. You will first and foremost be selected because of your professional background, of course. But once we have equal candidates with the same, more or less professional background, we will definitely go for the passion, the commitment, the belief that you can make a difference. Because it is not an easy ride to work for the UN. More often than not, it's one step forward, two steps behind. And this is precisely why we need it. If we were not operating in places where everything is working smoothly and perfectly, well, we would not be needed, obviously. So that commitment is quite important to convey. Also, and I know from other similar events I have attended in the past, again, it's not only UNDP, but that innovative mindset, what we call this next-gen thinking, is quite critical these days. We assess candidates in the capacity to think outside the box. So what does it mean for you? Even as students, make sure to the extent possible that you are taking some you're gaining some experience in activities where you are being asked to think of solutions to old problems. I'm not saying we will always find the right solution to an old problem, but that idea to be able to demonstrate as a candidate that you know how to turn things around, how to think outside the box. Usually, for sure in UNDP, but not only, this is one of the key competencies we will look into when assessing candidates. Also, the personal growth, and this is a bit like the compact, the agreement between the receiving agency like UNDP and colleague agencies, and then you as a candidate. Joining the UN, joining the UNDP is of course a professional growth journey because you will learn and gain so much new experience, but it's also a personal growth, because you will be exposed to a new environment, a new cultural environment. You will have to operate with people who have very different working styles. You will constantly be challenged in the way you see the world, because you will be talking to people who have been born and raised in such a different context. Personally, I think that's one of the most exciting things of working for the UN. After all these years, I've been 23 years in the UN system, and I'm still amazed when I start working with colleagues from different cultures that I haven't met yet. But it also means, again, that you need to be able to demonstrate as a candidate that you have as much exposure or at least interest in being exposed to such a multicultural context. Hence the importance to gain experience outside your country, and if possible in the developing country, as soon as possible. We've also talked, and again this is not only UNDP, but we've talked a lot about the programmatic profiles, but there are also all the activities related to supporting the said programmatic activities, human resources, IT, procurement, finance, of course, payroll, etc. So if your interest is more on these communications, PRs, etc., we have a lot of job opportunities also there. And actually, oftentimes we are lacking candidates in some of these activities. Audit, for example. Public auditing, it's something that across the UN system we have needs for. At least in UNDP, we have difficulties in getting the right candidates. So this is also something you may want to look at. I only have 2 minutes left, so I'll be quite fast in the last slides. My colleagues have talked a lot about the requirements, so we're not going into details. But my humble advice would be definitely to take a master's degree if you don't have it yet, and try to gain at least a couple of years of experience in, if possible, in a developing country context. Maybe with an NGO, maybe with COICA, maybe with the youth UN volunteers, which the Korean government is supporting. This will definitely strengthen your CV. It's not a must-have requirement. My colleagues have talked about these must-have and nice-to-have requirements, but it's definitely a nice-to-have one. These are examples of the requirements of UNDP. Again, I will not go into details. All of this is available online. But as you can see, it's quite aligned. We are actually totally aligned to the UN Secretariat when it comes to these questions. And depending on the position, we will not assess exactly the same competencies, of course, because some positions may be more analytical than others, some may be about coordination, etc. We have also different entry paths, and again, I will not go into details for the sake of time. This is available online, and also what my colleagues have presented would also apply to UNDP. A slight difference maybe is that for internships in UNDP, we don't do cohorts, but we advertise internship positions as they come. So there will always be a certain number of internship positions available on our job site, and it's a matter of grabbing them as they're available, and then they disappear and then new ones come up. At UNDP, internships are paid, a bit like OECD, where we're paying $1,000 for positions in places like, we don't have an office in Paris, but like New York or Geneva, for example. Also the JPO program, Korea is part of the UNDP JPO program, so again, you've heard it a lot. It's a great way to get into the UN system. I'm a former JPO myself, I can vouch for it, and so many others. Korea has very high retention rates through the JPO program, so you really want to invest in and understand how that works. And actually, we oftentimes have problems, difficulties in getting enough candidates for positions. So it's actually a great way to get into the system. I will stop here. I've briefly mentioned UNVs, great opportunity to gain field experience and first UN experience. So definitely a good one. And finally, UNDP has a job portal that you may want to look at. And this is where all opportunities, including internships, would be advertised. For the sake of time, I will stop here. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to be able to interact further with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marcelin, for your presentation and for your effort to keep it in the time frame. We will now open the floor for questions. Lady in the front, I think she raised the hand first.
People are leaving. I'm telling you, I didn't do a good job.
Hello, my name is Jungmin Yu, a Korean student who wants to be a human rights lawyer. First of all, I'm honored to have the opportunity to ask questions. I'm very nervous right now. Anyway, I am studying law and public administration at law school, so I am very interested in aid and policy. As I just said, I am very interested in human rights and because I want to be a human rights lawyer. So what can a human rights lawyer do on UNDP? This is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very good question. Actually, lawyers, we do not employ lawyers directly. It would be very rare that we would have positions which requires to be a lawyer. The law background, a legal background for sure, but in terms of lawyers, at least for UNDP, it would be quite rare. We would have people who would support governments in developing policies related to questions of, legal questions, whatever these are. Access to property, for example. In some countries, women do not have access to property, unlike men. So we would work with governments in trying to develop policies and implement laws which would allow access to property. It could be questions, of course, related to elections. In some countries, some minorities cannot vote because they are not registered in some national registries. So we work with governments in if they're willing, of course, it's always based on willingness of governments, but trying to convince them and then to implement approaches with experts in questions related to, in this case, registers, to make sure that the population is registered so that it can vote. This type of activities. So the background human rights lawyer is perfect for that. But when it comes to its implementation, it would be more towards a policy making and policy advice angle. It would not be like advocating for human rights or defending victims on these questions, at least not with UNDP. Thank you.
Gentleman who in the...
Thank you for your wonderful presentation, sir. And I have a question regarding the form of employment and job stability. And this question may not be directed particularly to the UNDP, but international organization in general. As far as I know, most of the job openings, the form of contract is like project-based fixed-term contract, like 3 or 4 years jobs. And there are few permanent jobs, and especially to people like me who are in their beginning stage of their career. So I have a kind of anxiety regarding the job stability, because even though I went through all those fierce competition and get some like 2 or 3 year junior job, but after that, does it mean that I have to look for a new opening after the expiration of the contract? Yes. And I think that would be quite a big source of stress for most people, because they have fear of like becoming unemployed after like some years, and they have to be job seeker, and it continues. So I would like some answers about the question, and I hope you can provide some advice in starting a career in international organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very good question, very valid question. Do you want the official one or the real one, the answer? I mean, in terms of... I can tell you about the website answer, or I can tell you about my personal and more jokes aside, the reality of... It is true. I mean, I've been working for 23 years. The longest contract I have ever been given is 2 years, 2 years contract. So it is true that there is always a question there. Some people have been lucky and can still be lucky, depending on the agencies, that after a certain number of years, I understand in ICC, for example, after, you said 5 years, I think, then you get kind of a permanent contract. It's not the case in UNDP, and it's not the case in many, many agencies in the UN system. So I'll be very candid here and frank. Have I ever been unemployed for more than 1 day? No. I've always juggled from one contract to the other, and most of the time I knew quite in advance that whether I would continue or not. So if you want total job stability, I'm not sure this is going to be the place to be honest, because we are very much depending on budgets, public money, public funding we're getting from different institutions, like governments in particular, that they may cut. Sometimes we are kicked off from a country, so suddenly we have to pack and leave, and people who had a job there may have to find another job, etc. Whether there are job opportunities, certainly there are, certainly. Most people leaving UNDP leave because they've decided so. There's a lot of many job opportunities, and if you build up your CV in such a way that you remain, on top of your area of expertise, whichever that is, I bet there are job opportunities. Korean nationals have very high retention rate in the UN system, and most of the time if they leave it's because they have other plans, especially moving back home, for example, for family reasons, for example. So that's my answer to that. Now, agencies have different approaches, but UNDP, it's 2-year contracts at best, for the time being at least. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Marcelin. Last but not least, we luckily have 2 guests from UNESCO. Please welcome Ms. Rosela Salvia, Head for Center for Learning and Partnership Development, and Ms. Aina Karlieva, Senior Human Resources Officer, to the floor. Is there a spare microphone for Ms. Aina, please?
I don't even know what to do with this. Okay. Hello. Yeah. After 30 years, I'm less and less able to do 2 or 3 things at the same time. So if I talk, I read, and then to move the slides is really too much. So me and I now, we will share the presentation. Let's try to keep it as short as possible. And in fact, we even have a little video that better than anybody else will explain you what UNESCO is all about, and then we will see how to get there and how to go about it. But first of all, so I'm Rosella, I'm Italian. Next year will be 30 years I've been at UNESCO, and I was in the private sector before, and I'm enjoying. And I think the people with whom I've been working, Jean-Luc, with whom we've been doing so many of this, I'm really enjoying it. So my advice to you is, get a job. Frankly, maybe we'll tell you later. Yes, in UNESCO we have, and in the Secretariat, 2 years contract. But if you are applying to a position which is structural, which is, for a function that is staying, you're not going to leave it normally. If you are applying to a project, then it's a different thing. But maybe we'll get back to this later. Aina?
Thank you very much, Rosella. So my name is Aina, and I work with Rosella. We work in different teams, and I have been in UNESCO for more than 17 years. Actually, I was recruited by Rosella as a part of the Young Professional Program, so that was one of the happiest days of my life. And so I moved through different HR parts of the organization, but my personal background, I came from legal background. But if after a few years now you will ask me whether I would like to come back to law and change, from HR to legal, I would say no way, because it's one of the most passionate area, and you can learn so much things about when you work in an international organization. So yeah, please.
Yeah, so yes, I forgot to tell you, so I'm the head of the training, career development and human resources partnerships, which includes handling the JPOs and all the governmental programs, the interns, the volunteers, the loans and secondments. We have with a number of things. So we'll go through the UNESCO mandate, we will watch a video, what we're looking for, the recruitment process, which is pretty much the same than the others, and the talent. But the next slide, it's really to show you in this very articulated world, where are we? So we are here as a specialized agency. So all of us here, we are there to develop and promote peace. and do our best to have proper policies and proper actions. We are specialized in education, natural and social sciences, culture and communications. So with the next slide, I think we can have the video going. And who click? You click. This was made for the 75th anniversary of UNESCO. Of course, now the sound is not functioning because before we tried it was functioning. Typical. Maybe I put the microphone close. I put it here. No, I keep it. It's 3 minutes.
After 2 world wars in less than 30 years, UNESCO was born of a clear vision to achieve lasting peace. Economic and political agreements among states are not enough. We must bring people together and strengthen the intellectual and moral solidarity of humankind through mutual understanding and dialogue between cultures.
In consequence thereof, they do hereby create the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization.
Over the years, UNESCO has launched pioneering programs to achieve this. We mobilized philosophers, artists, intellectuals from every nation. From the very beginning, we debunked racist theories, and we developed innovative projects that changed the world. The Universal Copyright Convention, Biosphere Reserve, World Heritage Sites, and the very notion of living heritage. We gave rise to global centers of scientific research, from CERN to Sesame, developed tsunami early warning systems, wrote the general history of Africa and all 5 continents, and carried out literacy campaigns of unprecedented scale in Italy, in the Republic of Korea, in Afghanistan. UNESCO established universal principles for scientific ethics and the human genome, and protects the best that humanity has to offer. The temples of ancient Egypt saved from rising waters, the treasures of Venice, of Angkor, and the old bridge of Mostar rebuilt after war. Faced with the challenges of our age, UNESCO's mandate is more relevant than ever. And with all our member states, UNESCO continues to lead the way forward. We are imagining the futures of education to navigate to our new world and to live in peace with others and with the planet. We are establishing common standards on open science and the ethics of artificial intelligence. We are developing new tools to fight new forms of racism, hate speech, and misinformation. On the ground, in Beirut, in Mosul, to reinvigorate cultural life and build lasting peace. After 75 years, our mission remains essential. The world needs education, science, culture, and information. Our world, our humanity.
Okay, I don't know if you could see, or hear rather, probably you could see it. So that was from 2021, so if you want to watch it again, It is on YouTube. You put just UNESCO anniversary 75 years and you will see it. So what is important to know is that these are the 5 main functions of UNESCO: laboratory of ideas and knowledge sharing, policy analysis and benchmarking, strengthening international and regional cooperation, setting norms and standards, and technical advice. Especially setting norms and standards implies a lot of lawyers, for instance, so for those who were in the law background. So this can be applied to the education, to water management, to cultural heritage or intangible heritage, the communications, which means gathering all the languages spoken throughout the world, but also the protection of journalists and the freedom of expression. So the mandate of UNESCO is possibly even too diverse and very, very wide, but the type of functions are pretty much the same. So it's important for you to understand if you are more of a project officer, somebody who likes to work and be implicated in projects, or you are more analytical, more on the policy development, or you want to share and, you know, engage with others and then collect and bring together different people, actors that can, you know, help sharing the information and promote the information. Okay, this is to show you, we are based in Paris, but we have 53 offices throughout the world. We are actually going through a transformation, meaning restructuring of our field offices. So the balls that are blue there, they are bigger offices, and then you have smaller offices who are, especially in the future, they will take care of the country locally. In a nutshell, what we do in Paris is really upstream policies where really all the governments are together to decide about something important, where in the field office you will do more, you know, local work together with the local authorities to see how to apply the policies that UNESCO has decided worldwide, how to apply it in a given country. Here you also see that we have, and we are very proud, to have a more than gender balance. We have 56% of women, and even at the senior level, we have 42%. So UNESCO is really among the top 5 or 6 agencies in the UN with these type of figures. 2,320 staff compared to the 20,000 of UNDP. We actually more than that, because we do have project posts, as we were saying before. So the 2,000 people, let's say, we have these quite permanent jobs, whereas the other 5,000, possibly, they are more on projects, and in that sense, it's true, it's not, they are not permanent jobs. Okay, so here we just wanted to give you some examples, milestones. So the 654,796 teachers trained. But for education, one of the most important moment was last year when they went to New York for this very big and important summit for education. Unfortunately, it happened when the Queen Elizabeth was dying and the funeral was taking place. So many prime ministers or important people went to London for those funerals instead of being in New York, but the Secretary General was in New York, and I think it was a very successful meeting. The biosphere reserves we have in 134 countries, so we're really going all over the world to make sure that the beautiful places are preserved. But again, water management is a very important program that we have at UNESCO. It's also intergovernmental, and it's in particularly, you know, with the climate and on this type of thing. Social and human sciences, the big achievement was this recommendation that was adopted by member states last year in 2021 on artificial intelligence, which is becoming more and more important and relevant in our lives, and is very sensitive politically and by all means. Culture, you probably hear a lot about World Heritage and the site, but then we also have intangible heritage and we have cultural industry. So the cultural world is very, very big. And the communication information sector, here we have the colleagues who work on documented languages. But as I said, a very important work they're doing, especially now in Ukraine, is the protections of freedom of expression, human rights, and protection of journalists. Okay, this is now for...
Yeah. I will go very quickly through different programs. And of course, you can find all the relevant information on our website. But UNESCO, it's not... very often we say that UNESCO, it's more than one organization. So we cover different programs. I assume that most of you know UNESCO more through its World Heritage Center, so through culture. But actually the biggest program sector is education sector. So basically we provide global and regional leadership in education, strengthening and also strengthening education systems. In natural sciences, this is the second biggest program at UNESCO, and just an example. So we work around different programs, biospheres and global geoparks, which covers 10 million kilometers square in the world. Social and human sciences, working around different programs, and as Rosella mentioned, so one of the biggest achievements in the last few years is the adoption of the first ever global standard on the ethics of artificial intelligence. And this program sector works a lot around ethics in science and ethics in technology. Communication information, so we work to defend and promote freedom of expression, security and media independence, and we work a lot around pluralism and building inclusive knowledge societies. Culture, one of the flagship program of UNESCO, and again this is one of the example of the recent achievements. So revive the spirit of Mosul. So we help to reconstruct city of Mosul in Iraq. And of course, I mean, nobody would think about, but we also work with ocean. And UNESCO, it's the leading agency working with the oceans. Now we're working around ocean decade, and we also put in place tsunami ready program applied in the Pacific, Asian and Pacific region, and also in the Caribbean.
Okay, so this is probably, I would say, very general, so could apply to all our colleagues that was here. Why you should work at UNESCO and what will you gain at UNESCO? Now, what is important to know is that, and I was supposed to say it when we saw that slide about the UN system and all the agencies that we are here. So we are an intergovernmental organization, and we have assessed contribution. We are not humanitarian in the sense we work on policies. We work on situations that are always there and can continue forever. So we are very different from the colleagues who works in humanitarian situation. They get into the job like UNHCR, like WFP, World Food Programme, and others who are in fact in another room. So again, probably these things you can gain also working with these other colleagues of humanitarian situation, but they, for instance, they are much quicker, they are much, dynamic, they are much mobile, so you have to move around after a couple of, maybe 2 or 3 or maximum 4 years, whereas we have in UNESCO, and that's probably also an issue, we tend to be a little bit too stable, too fixed, too you know, stay stuck, let's say, even in Paris, even if we are trying to mobilize as much as possible. So if you want to serve the community, our salary, for me, they are very, very good, but probably they're not competitive with the private sector. But let's say if you're thinking of your salary and how much you earn, don't think of UNESCO, don't think of the UN, get to the private sector. Meaning that it's true, the UN is not for everybody, it's for people who want anyway to contribute to a cause, who want to participate in something that goes a little bit beyond, you know, your own things. And all of us said about diversity. Diversity is a very complex situation. When I arrived, my director was Japanese, the deputy was Algerian, and I was working with a Canadian, and I had a Filipino reporting to me. So you really have to learn a lot to adapt and to use different registers to everybody. And it's fascinating, but it's not easy. To be honest, it's not very easy. Okay, next slide. Voila. Back to Raina.
Yeah, I will not. I mean, I will go very quickly through that. I mean, all our colleagues already explained, you know, what is the recruitment process. This is the standard recruitment process, which applies to almost all talent programs, different recruitments in the organization. So, of course, applying via our career site. We have screening of applications, assessment, which are we have two types of assessment. We have pre-recorded video interviews and also written assessment through different forms, you know, scenario-based analysis of article, you know, Excel file, you know, which should you know, analyze information and etc. Interview with the panel. Again, 4 or 5 people sitting in the panel. We do use different type of interviews and of course the selection process. As other colleagues already mentioned, so one of the tips, so if you go through our vacancies and you don't find something suitable for you now, but it's better to create your profile so you're already in the database, and if a suitable position arises, you will receive notification. Again, application tips, so similar to all other agencies, you know, be specific, tailor your application, not just be, you know, general, you know, explaining in general words. Make the most of your experience, of course, be concise, and of course, this is very important, do not underestimate your language skills. If a position requires very good, excellent knowledge of English, don't estimate it, because if you put good, because you still think, I mean, I heard so many questions, so you're almost all excellent in English, so don't underestimate, because otherwise you will be just screened out from the process.
Can I just say something to underline something about the context, because I read so many letters of motivation to us, UNESCO, saying, because you, UNICEF, you take care of children or something. So be careful, really, the context of where you are applying. Or because you, non-profit, NGO, no, UNESCO is like all of us here. We are governmental organization. So we can recognize when you are doing something, an application which is, you know, over and over again. Maybe somebody before said you really have to engage in this position you are applying to. It's not always easy, but at least review it and make sure that it makes sense with the position you are applying to. Because then it's clear that it's not really meaningful, it's not genuine what you are writing there.
Okay, I think we can just pass there. Again, you know, basic recruitment standard, you know, assessment, interviews, and we do use the same system, you know, CARL, context, action, and learning. Now we work toward changing a little bit the system, and for example, scenario-based questions. So you have X, Y situation-based questions. what would be your path of actions? So that's something we are also introducing in the organization.
Okay, so these are the programs under my responsibility. So these are the partnerships, because then I'm also responsible for the training and learning. So my responsibility includes all the expertise that we want and we need at UNESCO, either internal from the staff or imported out from outside. JPOs, everybody has spoken about JPOs. I can just tell you that we have excellent JPOs from Korea, and we look to have more than that. Sponsored trainees, these are like fellowships sponsored by an entity, and in the case of Korea, we have an agreement with Key Eco and many other countries. The secondments and the loans, also arrangements that we have with some sponsoring either institution or ministries or universities. And COICA for us is one of the main, and so visit also their website to see what they are offering at the moment. The internships, at this stage at UNESCO, like in the Secretariat, we are not paying for the interns, but you have to imagine that we are changing it, but it's really an investment that you're making that has an impact on your CV. If you are on LinkedIn after an internship at UNESCO, you will see they will start looking at your profile much more than they're not doing it until now. The UN volunteers is called volunteers, but is paid. So this is Jean-Luc, he spoke to you about it. So their website, www.unv.org, because you can then be a volunteer in any of our, well, not in any of our organization, but definitely with UNESCO, with the UN Secretariat operation in the field, and you are paid. So it's called volunteers, but it's paid, and quite well paid anyway. Is one of our success story. She's the head of Amman office now, and she started as a young professional, and so it's nice to share with her. So we can have the two questions now, or?
Thank you, Ms. Karlieva and Ms. Salvia, for your presentation. We'll now open the floor for questions. Anyone? Yes, please, in the middle. Lady in the middle, please. Yes.
Don't be shy.
Is there a spare microphone for Ms. Salvia? I think she just gave away her microphone. Okay.
Hello, I'm Yejin Mo, and thank you for your presentation, and it's an honor for me to meet HR experts in person today. And to briefly introduce myself, I'm majoring in international studies, and I have two questions. First, many people said that to work in an international organization, you need a master's degree. So my question is, what would you recommend to an undergraduate student, for example, activity in intern or volunteer work and so on, to have an internship or a regular job in UNESCO? And second one, actually I transferred university from English and literature. So this is my first year majoring in international studies, even though I'm junior in university. So I want to ask you that I think I lack international experiences than other students. So I want to ask you about what would you recommend me to overcome this experience gap?
Sorry, what?
Experience gap between other regular students, because I transferred from English major to international studies, even though I'm junior here, but this is my first year actually.
Right. Okay, so there are several questions in your thing. First of all, at UNESCO, to be an intern, you must be enrolled in a master. So for us, an intern must be enrolled in a master, and you have to have accomplished 3 years of university already. Basically to have a BA if you follow that type of academic parcours. Then yes, you made a good choice to move from English major to international relations, because the English we give for granted you have to speak English, but that you have a major is not important. But international relations, for us, it's even more important to have it in an even more specific domain. International relations stays a little bit general, which means it can go a little bit everywhere. At the same time, you know, when we look for profiles, we look for education specialists, cultural specialists, and you know, different things. But international relations, they go to the external relations, or they can have some other, I say, more policy or cooperation and development. So besides the international relations, you also need something else over that. But for us, master is important, PhD even better, especially for the program sector, the education, natural science, culture, and communication. Without a master, you cannot even apply for an internship. So,
Thank
and
you.
even less for a post.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think the lady in the third row, she raised her hand first. In white?
Which row?
Yes.
Hi, thank you very much for your wonderful presentations. I actually have two questions. I actually have one personal question for Rosella, as you mentioned about how you worked in private sectors before but moved to the UN and how you enjoyed the experience. It may not be very specific to UNESCO, but just want to understand what was the most encouraging, or what is something that made you stay in here in public sector more longer than private sector. The reason why I'm asking this is I actually have experience in private sectors for all my life, up to 10 years. And as a person who wants to kind of change to private to UN and international organization, just want to understand what's the expectation and what's kind of different pros and cons that I should expect when I apply for non-private sectors. So that's my first question. And my second question is, it's very general, but professional. What will be the key competencies that you look for in this organization, especially for those who have work experience? Right now, I'm data analytics for most IT and platform companies, and also from e-commerce. So it's very quite different roles, but I just want to understand what would be the key kind of competence that you're looking for those who have experience in the private sectors.
Right. So, I moved from private sector to the UNESCO because I was in Paris as a tourist. That was 1993. We didn't have internet, but I had it in my mind. So I decided and I stepped in UNESCO, and the vacancies were on the wall there. So I read training officer, we're looking for training officer. I said, oh, that could be a good idea. So many people go to Paris, especially from Italy. Nobody that I know went to look for a job at UNESCO. So to say that, yes, you have to have it in your mind, first of all. So that means there is already an engagement there. I was working in the human resources in the private sector. This private sector, you realize you work a lot to make someone rich. So the idea that, in fact, you work a lot to, you know, improve the world or engage in something more interesting, I felt it was much, much better. So in fact, the work is more or less the same, maybe a little bit more complex because, in fact, of this multicultural situation, or because we don't have leverage as any public sector to reward more, you know. You don't have this type of premiums and things. It's the salary, it's always the same. You work well or not, you don't work well. So let's face it. So you have to find other ways to motivate your staff and things. So I had a cultural shock arriving. Now, why I stayed? Because I've been enjoying all my life what I was doing. And this is because I like to be with the people, look for the people, recruit the people, and see the results of these people have been recruiting, growing, some of them becoming even a higher grade than me. Eventually, it's really a reason of proudness, and and I would have not stayed if I was not enjoying. So it's true that I'm also able probably to self-motivate myself. I don't wait for the others. I've been lucky enough or good enough to find jobs that I enjoy doing, and I give a lot and I get back a lot, and that's the secret probably of why I'm still here and I didn't leave. So I wish for all of you to have the same experience. Now, the other question was what the competencies that we're looking for. So what you say, your data analytics, you said?
Yes.
So that, like Hong Kong said in the beginning, but it's the same for us, and I think for all of us, data analytics is really the competencies that we're really looking forward, and at least at UNESCO, we realize we don't have many at home. So we will be looking for that a lot, but please bear in mind that the technical skills, that competence cannot be alone. If you don't have that type of soft skills of working in teams and adapting and things, it cannot just be that solid but important technicality that will make you be hired. It's very important, and data analytics, and it's just what the others are realizing, we don't have a lot at home. So now our question will be, shall we train people or shall we hire people to get it to a level that will make it feasible? So give it a chance, because you may succeed. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Alvia and Ms. Carlieva. Please give all of our speakers a big round of applause for the last time, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is the end of the group session, but please remember to bring over the survey sheet, as I mentioned earlier, to the registration desk, and the international organizations booth will remain open until 6 p.m. For those who will participate in the mock interview, please return to this room after a 10-minute break. Thank you very much for your attentive participation, and hope you have a pleasant evening. Thank you very much.